Today I'm going to adjust the action of an acoustic guitar. This is a three-step process. First we adjust the neck relief, or the curvature of the neck, so that it is just a little bit above flat. Then we set the nut height so that it's pretty well the same as the fret heights. Then we adjust the bridge height so that we get a measurement of 3/32 of an inch from the bottom of the low E string to the 12th fret. Okay, these are the tools we'll be using. We've got a ruler that'll measure to 32nd of an inch, a file, a hacksaw blade that's been filed down to fit into the high E string nut slot, and has also had a bit of the sharpness taken off the blades with a file, a straight edge, a feeler gauge, a capo, a set of Allen's keys, a business card, and a string winder, and alternatively a pencil that's been cut in half. Our first step is to check the neck relief such that it has a very small curvature. We do this by putting a capo on the first fret, holding down the high E string at the fret where the neck joins the body, in this case it's the 14th fret, and checking the gap between the string and the fretboard at the 7th fret. There should be a small gap for correct neck relief. If the neck is dead flat, there will be no gap, but if the neck is too curved, there will be an excessive gap. The gap should be a little less than the width of the high E string, which we can check by cutting a piece of high E string and just moving it underneath the string to see if it catches or moves freely. If it moves freely, it needs to be tightened. If there's no play whatsoever, it needs to be loosened. To adjust it, we get a hex key that fits tightly into the nut, and to flatten the neck we turn clockwise, going no more than 1/4 of a turn at once, and then come back and check that height, and in this case that's a nice height. Step 2 is to adjust the nut height, so we'll loosen the strings off, move them off the nut, lay a straight edge across the nut, and find a feeler gauge height such that it fits tightly underneath that straight edge. Now we can file the grooves back to the height of the feeler gauge, which should be the same height as the frets, starting with the high E groove using a hacksaw blade that's been filed narrow. Alternatively, you can buy a set of nut files that cost about $100, This seems to do the trick. So filing the nut down through, file it flat, and then a little taper on the other side. And the same on the second. And as the frets get wider, use wider sections of the hacksaw blade. So just filing until we hit the feeler gauge, and we should be just right. Alternatively, you can use a flattened pencil that's been cut in half, lay it across the frets and draw a line across the nut, which will give you an indicator of how much you need to take off, and then you take the nut off and file the bottom of it to the appropriate length. So that's set our nut. Now we're going to reseat the strings to do step 3, which is to adjust the saddle height. Sounds like the kookaburras are enjoying my tutorial. Okay, now we want to measure the height of the strings above the 12th fret using our straight edge. And we want to measure from the top of the fret to the bottom of the string, and we want 2 30-seconds clearance on the high E string and 3 30-seconds clearance on the low E string. So we lay the straight edge on the 12th fret and check that height, and I have 3 30-seconds clearance there, so I need to drop that by 1 30-second and check the height on the other side, and I have 3.5 30-seconds clearance, so I need to drop that by half a 30-second. Now, since we're halfway to the bridge and saddle, we need to double those measurements that we need to drop it by. So we need to drop the high E string side by 2 30-seconds and the low E string side by 1 30-second. So we're going to remove the strings and pull the saddle out now. Okay, to adjust the saddle, we want to file 2 30-seconds from the high E side and 1 30-second from the low E side. So we're going to use a texter to mark a line 2 30-seconds in width at that end, and a line 1 30-second at the other end. Now we're going to use the angle grind, the belt sander, to file down the saddle. Until we have the required amount removed. Then we're going to put it back, restring, and check the final product, and the guitar will be set correctly. And here's the finished action, sounding great.